There's not a perfect recipe for creating and maintaining interesting conversations, but there are a few key ingredients that you can apply in any conversation and have better interactions with people. So let's see some of the things that make people and their conversations so interesting.
It is fascinating that there are chemicals that can make your body bigger and stronger. It's fascinating that you could take things and your body grows bigger and stronger and more manly, but it's only available for men. There's not really a thing that a woman can take that makes her more womanly. You know, there's not like a hormone that a woman can take that accentuates the waist to hip ratio or, you know, grows her breasts or anything along those lines. It's really only a masculine endeavor.
This is simply an interesting topic to bring up in conversation. It's not something you hear talked about in your daily life. And by engaging people with unordinary topics like these, you can create an opportunity to have a much more interesting conversation. Now, obviously, not everyone you come across will want to engage with you in strange topics like steroids for women, but it's your job to create the opportunity for it to happen, no matter who you're speaking with. Because part of what makes someone interesting is that they are interested in things. They consume interesting information, they form their own opinions on it, they share their ideas with other people, and they listen to other people, which allows them to consider things from completely different perspectives. And doing this regularly makes you a deeper and more agile thinker. You'll have more interesting things to contribute to future conversations, and you'll be more of a pleasure to speak with than the type of person who never does or learns anything new and can only see life from one perspective.
There's not really a thing that a woman can take that makes her more womanly. You know, there's not like a hormone that a woman can take that accentuates the waist to hip ratio or, you know, grows her breasts or anything along those lines. It's really only a masculine endeavor.
That's because we're controlled by the patriarchy. Okay? Has this been explained to you?
It has.
That if this was a matriarchy, there would be a female steroid that would turn women into Pam Anderson.
Okay, I'm going to stop here and tell you that you should use sarcasm at your own risk. Sarcasm is tricky because you have to know how to deliver it, and you have to be talking to a person that understands it. If you don't have both, it could lead to needless misunderstandings or even hurt feelings. But sarcasm can be a good way to add a bit of humor to the conversation. Negative comments can be received much better if they're accompanied by tasteful humor. Just think about stand-up comedy.
It's really only a masculine endeavor.
That's because we're controlled by the patriarchy. Okay? Has this been explained to you?
It has.
That if this was a matriarchy, there would be a female steroid that would turn women into Pam Anderson.
I don't think it's possible. The problem is biology. It's like the same reason why there's nothing that makes your dick grow.
Now, there are times when you recognize that someone is being funny, but you don't really laugh, right? And sometimes after someone makes a joke, there's a brief moment when the other person doesn't know how to respond or where to take the conversation, especially when you're talking to the type of person who is constantly making little jokes throughout the conversation. And one thing I found to be very effective is simply continuing with the topic at hand, just like Joe did here. In those moments, you don't have to dwell on the joke that was made. You can simply keep the conversation going with your next comment, and the person who made the joke is usually happy to move right along with you. And it's also important to remember that casual conversations should be fun, meaning you shouldn't take them too seriously. These two guys are talking about something that could cause an argument in certain social circles, but since they're not taking it seriously, they're free to disagree with each other, make jokes, and challenge each other's perspectives because it's just a casual conversation.
If this was a matriarchy, there would be a female steroid that would turn women into Pam Anderson.
I don't think it's possible. The problem is biology. It's like the same reason why there's nothing that makes your dick grow.
Okay, I would debate that.
Please do.
I would debate that is such a smooth way of saying that you disagree with something that's been said. It communicates doubt without being aggressive. It invites the possibility of an interesting debate, and it's easy for the other person to blow off, right? Just imagine you say, I would debate that. The other person could easily say something like, okay, good for you. And it would be clear the other person isn't interested in the debate. There was no argument, and there was no problem. So the point is, do not be afraid to say that you disagree, and be prepared to defend your arguments in a debate. Now, Joe, being a great conversationalist, immediately invites the debate by saying, "Please do." And so he communicates, "I want to know and understand the way you see things." And this is the mark of a confident yet humble communicator who's had lots of experience in the art of conversation. The more you talk to people with an open mind, the more perspectives and stories you will receive. And you'll start to realize that none of us really know anything. And we are not our thoughts, nor are we our beliefs. So if there's a difference of thought or belief, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to debate complex topics, and it's okay to change your mind. A lot of people feel so attached to their beliefs and opinions that they feel personally attacked if anyone disagrees with them. But this mentality only serves to make you a boring individual who nobody wants to talk to. Because part of what makes someone interesting is that they have their own opinions, but they're more than willing to debate those opinions and have their minds changed if presented with new information. They don't take themselves too seriously, and they're always willing to learn something new.
I don't think it's possible. The problem is biology. It's like the same reason why there's nothing that makes your dick grow.
Okay, I would debate that.
Please do.
Well, years ago, I got to do 3 autopsies with a medical student. She was preparing cadavers, for a medical lab the next day. And it was 2 women and a man. And the man was maybe 80, 85-year-old physician. And she explained that he had been self-medicating with steroids late in life, for maybe for 20 or 30 years even. And when we popped his chest open, his heart was enormous. And she took out this huge heart and she said, "This is steroids."
Steroid abuse.
Yeah. And
Wow.
when what'd they call it? We freed the testicles, which was...
Freed them. I like you say that. Like they're in prison.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Now, this is another great example of the fact that part of what makes someone interesting is that they're interested in things. The more life experience you have, the more you can talk about in conversations. This guy got to do autopsies with a medical student 3 years ago, and now he's able to contribute that to a conversation and make it more interesting. The simple fact is that by doing more with yourself and your life, you will naturally become a more interesting person. And you might be thinking, yeah, but I live a simple life. I don't do tons of fascinating stuff like autopsies or stand-up comedy or UFC fight commentary. And I also don't know anyone who does super interesting stuff like that. And that may be true. But in my experience, even if we aren't always doing extraordinary things, we do come across people with completely unique stories every day. We just tend to overlook them. The person sitting next to you on the bus is full of stories and opinions that you would never see on Netflix or social media. The lady you're waiting in line with has done things that you will never do in your lifetime. The guy cutting your hair sees the world in a way you might have never considered. And by engaging in conversation with these people, you're creating an opportunity for interesting conversations to take place. Because you don't always need to have the most interesting things to say. Sometimes by simply being curious and a good listener, you can find yourself in situations where people will share all kinds of things with you, because as people, we love being listened to and understood.
What'd they call it? We freed the testicles, which was...
Freed them. I like you say that. Like they're in prison.
Yeah. Oh, God. But it was called sectioning, but we had to cut the penis lengthwise. And he had a huge schlong. And she said it was also steroids.
Really?
Yeah, that's just what Donna said. Okay, but...
How does Donna know? Was she there at the beginning?
I have no idea. But
she there with a ruler?
She told me. So...
Okay, this is a great example of how to properly engage in a casual debate. Joe has maintained a lighthearted and playful tone since the beginning. He's cracked a few jokes, and when presented with the story about a man who grew his penis with steroids, Joe maintains his skeptical attitude and decides to play the devil's advocate. I'm sure Joe would be the first to admit that he's not an expert on the science here, but based on his knowledge, he doesn't believe it's possible to chemically grow your penis. But when presented with contrasting information, he doesn't say, "No, that's not true. You're wrong. That's ridiculous. He just playfully pushes back on the logic of the story by asking Chuck to explain himself. So the point is that whether you agree with someone or not, part of what makes a conversation interesting is that the people involved know how to argue for and against their ideas. Meaning, if someone says something you agree with, you can make the conversation more interesting by responding with an opposing view and challenge them to formulate better arguments. And if someone says something you disagree with, you don't have to respond immediately with your idea of what's right and why their opinion is wrong. You can simply ask them to explain their line of thought until you understand it completely. Now, this does a few things. It gives them a chance to feel heard and understood, and I told you, humans love this, but it also gives you a chance to see if they're full of shit. Because if they can't defend their ideas with logic, it probably means they don't understand what they're talking about. And you can also express your disagreement without being an asshole. It also gives you a chance to hear an unfiltered opinion that's different from your own, and it could change the way you see things. And at the end of the day, it just makes the conversation more interesting. Because in most cases, a conversation between two people who agree on everything is very short. So don't be afraid to play the devil's advocate. It makes for more dynamic conversations that you can learn from, as opposed to the routine ones that you run from.
And he had a huge schlong. And she said it was also steroids.
Really?
Yeah, that's just what Donna said. Okay, but
How does Donna know? Was she there at the beginning?
I have no idea. But
She there with a ruler?
She told me. So
I didn't know that. I've never heard that it makes your dick grow. But it does make sense because I was talking to someone who...
when female bodybuilders.
Yes,
do
that's what
a-
I was just
yes,
gonna
there
get
you
to.
are.
Now, I fail to understand why people feel the need to cut someone off with comments like this. Occasionally talking over people is natural. It's just part of casual conversations. But if someone starts talking and has gotten well into their sentence and it's clear they're about to say something, there's no reason to cut them off with unnecessary information that could have waited. There are 3 moments when it makes sense to interrupt someone who's speaking. The first one is you didn't hear something they said and you want them to repeat it. The second one is you didn't understand their idea and you want them to explain it again. And the third one is they're beating around the bush and you need them to get to the point. Other than that, whatever you have to say can wait until the other person has finished speaking.
I didn't know that. I've never heard that it makes your dick grow. But it does make sense because I was talking to someone who...
when female bodybuilders.
Yes,
do
that's what
a-
I was just
yes,
gonna
there
get
you
to.
are.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna say someone who had transitioned, or a woman rather, would become a trans male and then went back. And the dilemma was the size of the clitoris. It changed pretty radically, and it couldn't change back.
So that seems to be an argument in Donna's favor.
It is an argument in Donna's favor. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Now, Joe's ability to continue contributing to the conversation is partly because of his life experience and personal interests. He may not have done autopsies with medical students, but that story made him think of another story he had heard while pursuing his own interests. Because remember, part of what makes someone interesting is that they are interested in things. And when you're deeply interested in something, you start to see connections between that thing and many other things in your life. And that just gives you another way to contribute to conversations, even when the topic is something you know nothing about. And also notice how Joe was not bothered by being cut off. He got right back to what he was saying.
Because I was talking to someone who...
when female bodybuilders.
Yes,
do
that's
a-
what I was just
yes,
gonna
there
get
you
to.
are.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna say someone who had transitioned, or a woman rather, would become a trans male and then went back. And the dilemma was the size of the clitoris. It changed pretty radically, and it couldn't change back.
So that seems to be an argument in Donna's favor.
It is an argument in Donna's favor, now that I'm thinking about it.
Now, personally, I find it painful to listen to a conversation in which 2 people are constantly talking over each other. And it's even worse when I'm involved in those conversations myself. But one thing I've learned is that it's simply part of communicating with different people. Everyone has their own style and way of doing things, and the greatest communicators are those who can adapt to various styles depending on the situation. And the simple act of interrupting people deserves its own video, so we'll revisit that topic at some point. But the takeaway here is to just keep your cool when you're in situations like this. If someone interrupts you, don't take it personally and just get right back to what you were saying.
So that seems to be an argument in Donna's favor.
It is an argument in Donna's favor, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, you got to get the right balance where your heart doesn't explode, but your dick gets really big.
Or you could just find a hobby, okay?
Oh, you could, but come on. We're not going to live forever, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, there's more to life, okay?
Maybe there is for you. Some people like to ride BMX bikes off the side of a fucking cliff. You know? My buddy Andy Stumpf, he does those fucking squirrel suits, those flying squirrel suits where you jump off cliffs and soar through the mountains. He held the world record for it. That seems to me ridiculous. It makes way more sense just growing a bigger dick with steroids than doing that.